As president, I will carry out the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
This morning, I'm at the Tucson International Airport. Behind me, you can see recently processed migrants boarding an international flight back to their country of origin. I would remind anyone thinking about crossing the border illegally between the ports of entry that under Title VIII,
Washington recently deported Indian nationals who were living in the United States illegally. The Department of Homeland Security said a chartered plane carrying the immigrants left for India on October 22nd.
21 Indians were deported in one single day at airports in Atlanta, Chicago, and San Francisco.
My immigrant mother just called me on the phone innocently asking me if she should start carrying her passport in case they start doing mass deportations to prove that she's a citizen.
It's happening. In anticipation of a Trump win, Texas has acquired thousands of acres of land right along the Mexican and U.S. border.
Imagine waking up in a city that feels half empty. Streets are quieter, businesses are closed, and your child's favorite teacher or the corner coffee shop's friendly barista is suddenly gone. This unsettling scene is a glimpse into what mass deportations could bring, not only for immigrants, but also for millions of U.S. citizens who are directly impacted and affected. So
they voted for mass deportation, but did they realize it could tear up their own community? In today's episode, we are uncovering the unexpected consequences of MAGA's immigration policies on everyday citizens, local economies, and even those Hispanic that voted red despite having undocumented family members. Did they unknowingly voted to destabilize their own household? Let's watch these videos that I've gathered for you guys. I want us to watch these videos until the end, and we get to see how loyalty to a party can sometimes come at devastating personal cost. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't. So let's dive right ahead to the video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comment section, and we'll come back to it. My immigrant mother just called me on the phone innocently asking me if she should start carrying her passport in case they start doing mass deportations to prove that she's a citizen. That's so sad.
Washington recently deported Indian nationals who were living in the United States illegally. The Department of Homeland Security said a chartered plane carrying the immigrants left for India on October 22nd, and the operation was conducted in coordination with the Indian government. Now, it's still unclear how many Indians were in fact deported. According to the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, more than 90,000 Indians have tried to enter America illegally between October of 2023 and September of 2024. Washington recently deported Indian nationals who were living in the United States illegally. The Department of Homeland Security said a chartered plane carrying the immigrants left for India on October 22nd, and the operation was conducted in coordination with the Indian government. Now, it's still unclear how many Indians were in fact deported. According to the U.S. Customs and Border Patrol, more than 90,000 Indians have tried to enter America illegally between October of 2023 and September of 2024.
I'm John Modlin, Chief of the U.S. Border Patrol's Tucson sector. This morning, I'm at the Tucson International Airport. Behind me, you can see recently processed migrants boarding an international flight back to their country of origin. I would remind anyone thinking about crossing the border illegally between the ports of entry that under Title VIII, you may face an enhanced expedited removal process, meaning that upon being encountered, you'll be promptly placed into immigration proceedings and may be removed. Instead, anyone considering migrating to the United States is highly encouraged to apply for admission. Don't risk your life or the lives of your loved ones by crossing illegally through Arizona's desert during the summer months. Remember, there are consequences for illegal entry under Title VIII. These consequences are strictly enforced. Use the CBP-1 mobile application. Don't cross the border illegally.
It's happening. In anticipation of a Trump win, Texas has acquired thousands of acres of land right along the Mexican and U.S. border. And now the state of Texas has sent a letter to the Trump administration offering 1,400 acres to be utilized for a mass deportation camp. The land is located in Stark County, right along the Rio Grande Valley. The 1,400 acres would allow the Trump administration to build an enormous facility for processing all undocumented immigrants to be deported. The first to be deported, the 1.6 undocumented criminals currently in the United States. Trump has yet to respond to the offering of the land in Texas. But the acquisition of the land indicates only one thing. Governor Abbott from Texas and Trump already had talks of such facility and the need of the land. The letter offering the land to Trump just makes it official. Having the land is one thing. Having the money to build a facility and to send millions of people back to their country of origin is another. Mexico will not take anyone else other than their own Mexican people. Claudia Sheinbaum has said she will not take anyone from any other country. This is almost like having the land to build a home, but you don't have the money to build a house.
Is there a way to carry out mass deportation without separating families?
Of course there is. Families can be deported together.
Amigos, while we were all sleeping last night, the unsanitized devil was hard at work because this man right here, Tom Holland, is coming back to oversee our nation's borders. If you don't know Trouble Tom, he was the ICE director during Trump's first term, and he was the mastermind behind the zero tolerance policy, which separated parents from their children at the border. He is the reason why a lot of children stayed in the U.S. without their parents, why parents went back to their country of origin without their kids, why 19-month-olds ended up in different states while their parents were in detention camps at other states. I mean, it was just gross. And with that unsanitized orange laser focus on mass deportations, I worry what this means, yes, for undocumented immigrants, but for mixed status families, who we often forget about, right? Not every single undocumented immigrant in the US is currently coming through the border. A lot of them have been here for many, many years and have contributed so much to this economy. 1 in 10 US households right now includes a mixed status family, which means that if your mom is a resident and your dad is undocumented, but you are a US citizen, your dad does still run the risk of being deported. And under Tom's ideology, instead of just deporting your father, why not deport the whole family? These are families that have been here for decades that will literally be ripped apart because of his ideology, because of this effort of mass deportation. Honestly, amigos, I can't say I'm shocked, but I am at a loss for words. And if you are a Latino for Trump in a mixed status family, as I said recently, I hope you get everything you voted for.
So construction companies in Texas are warning that Donald Trump's mass deportation plan could devastate their industry and could derail Texas's economic growth. So as you can see, Texas builders are warning that Donald Trump's mass deportation of undocumented migrants could devastate the construction industry, threaten housing and infrastructure work in one of the nation's fastest growing states. Now let's see what one of the CEOs of these big construction companies had to say about Donald Trump's plan to deport undocumented migrants. Quote, "It would devastate our industry. We wouldn't finish our highways. We wouldn't finish our schools, ... Housing would disappear. I think they'd lose half their labor," end quote. And that CEO's fear is valid. As you can see, over 500,000 immigrants work within the Texas construction industry, 60% of them being undocumented. So there you have it. A state that overwhelmingly voted for Donald Trump now has industry leaders within that state sounding the alarm about how dangerous Donald Trump's plan will be for their businesses and for Texas's economy on the whole. It's not a good plan.
He is what every undocumented immigrant in this country fears the most. And Donald Trump just picked him as the next border czar. And although it is true that he plans to do mass deportations of anyone that already has orders of deportation, anyone that failed to appear in front of an immigration judge, anyone that has committed a crime here in the United States, or anyone that has crossed the border more than once, meaning they were deported back to their country and now they're back in the United States. Tom Holman says that the very first group that are going home, the 1.6 undocumented criminals that are here in the United States. But there's also a lot of speculation that Tom Holman will be deporting U.S. citizens. That's simply not true. He says that that's a rumor that someone got started, but his priorities are those groups that I just mentioned. So how is Trump planning to pay for all of these mass deportations, you may ask? It's called self-deportation. That's because of the 11 million people that are undocumented right now in the United States. Most of them pay taxes, and the United States knows exactly where they are. And they're going to start receiving letters from ICE, giving them an X amount of time to pick up and go. And what people are not going to want to do is suddenly being picked up by ICE while they're at work, because it gives you no time to go to the bank. It gives you no time to sell your house, your vehicle. They put you in a holding cell, and within 24 hours, you're back in your country. People are just going to choose self-deportation, especially if they're giving them 90 days to leave the country. They're going to want to put their affairs in order, sell a house, pack the vehicle, take their belongings. So in the next 4 years, we're going to see a lot of people who are just going to pick up their things and leave the country, all on their own.
He's going to deport 20 million people, the people who pick your crops, the people who process your meat, the people who, care for your grandmother, the people who serve all sorts of critical functions in this country. Yeah, he's going to deport a lot of people, and that's going to worsen the economy. In fact, there have been, like a dozen different independent economic analyses from Goldman Sachs, AEI, Brookings, Nomura, Peterson Institute. All of them
I know your argument. If you want to run on more illegal immigration as a Democrat, go ahead. I just don't think it's going to work in the election.
He wants to deport 20 million. I'm not done with his. I know what his economic policy is because he has talked about it. He doesn't understand how any of it would work, but he has talked about it. He wants 10% global tariffs, which would worsen inflation. He wants to deport 20 million people, which would worsen inflation and reduce growth. He wants to politicize the Federal Reserve, which would worsen inflation.
Okay, a mass deportation will have massive impacts on our economy. There are so many jobs that are being done by undocumented immigrants that Americans just don't want to do. And so, for example, if you pull all the undocumented immigrants off of the farmlands, or people who are packaging and cutting your food, and put Americans in those jobs, Americans are going to demand decent pay. We're going to demand unions and all these other things, and insurance and all this. And all that is going to cost us way more money than we're spending now. Our food is built on undocumented immigrants. So if you voted for the price of your eggs, well, the cost of those American wages will be passed on to the food cost. So get ready to pay a crap more money for those eggs. So you voted to put us into the next Great Depression. Thank you very much.
Imagine waking up in a city that feels half empty. Streets are quieter, businesses are closing, your child's favorite teacher or the corner coffee shop's friendly barista is suddenly gone. This unsettling scene is a glimpse into what mass deportations could bring, not only for immigrants, but also for millions of U.S. citizens who are directly impacted and affected. So here's why Trump's $1 trillion mass deportation plan could negatively impact Americans. So according to the American Immigration Council, over 11 million undocumented individuals are currently living in the United States, many with deep ties and family connections in our communities. While the media often frames deportations as primarily affecting Latinos, the reality reaches far beyond. Many immigrants at risk of deportation are from Haiti, various African nations, and Caribbean countries. In cities like New York, Miami, and DC, Black immigrant populations are integral to their neighborhoods and economies. Deporting them would have devastating impacts and effects on these local communities. A one-time mass deportation operation would cost taxpayers a minimum of $300 billion. Alternatively, if the government aimed to expand infrastructure to deport 1 million people a year, the cost would be $88 billion each year, which would total to almost $1 trillion over more than a decade. This effort would also require $167 billion for detentions, thousands of new detention centers, and hiring up to 409,000 additional federal employees, which is already a challenge given the current hiring shortages. So beyond the financial costs, deportation of millions would have an equally profound negative impact on our workforce workforce and our economy. Nearly 90% of undocumented immigrants are of working age compared to just 61.3% of U.S.-born residents. Their contributions are especially critical in industries already facing labor shortages like agriculture, hospitality, and construction. For example, mass deportations would remove more than 30% of construction trade workers and nearly a quarter of all agricultural workers, significantly impacting the food supply and then the housing markets. The negative impact would be the most significant in California, Texas, and Florida. And these states are home to 47.2% of the country's undocumented population. This is essentially 1 in 20 residents being deported in these states. The economic hit extends beyond lost jobs. Despite not being able to vote, undocumented immigrant households contribute billions to the U.S. economy annually. In 2022, they paid $46.8 billion in federal taxes, $29.3 billion in state and local taxes. These contributions fund essential services from schools to emergency response teams. Losing these contributions would also worsen the long-term stability of programs like Social Security and Medicare, which rely on taxpayer support. The social impact is equally severe. Mass deportations would rip families apart, leaving millions of U.S. citizens without loved ones. Approximately 4 million mixed-status families would be separated, affecting an estimated 8.5 million U.S. citizens, including 5.1 million children who could lose one or both parents. These families could face an income loss of around 62.7%, plummeting many into poverty and further destabilizing local economies. If Trump follows through with mass deportations, we risk not only breaking up families and disrupting communities, but also inflicting lasting harm on our economy. The cost isn't just measured in dollars. It's the quality of life for millions of Americans, the loss of vital workers, and the weakening of our society. Are we truly willing to pay the price to deport millions of our neighbors just because they're being unfairly scapegoated for capitalism in decline? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.
I believe that a country whose capital starts with an M is purposely trying to starve our nation, like literally through our food, by encouraging mass deportation. Hear me out. Farmers are begging Donald Trump to spare their employees from mass deportation. This is because they know that it'll absolutely upend our food industry. Almost all of our food is handled, packed, and picked by migrant workers, and it can't just be replaced overnight. Now, any sane person who isn't brainwashed would be able to look at the cause and effect and be like, oh God, that's disastrous, let's not do that. But not when half of the nation has been brainwashed to absolutely HATE migrants. This is where those Republican pundits who are obviously being paid come into play. They consistently peddle this I don't like migrants and you shouldn't either rhetoric that causes people to think like this. This comment right here was left under a news article on Instagram. The news article is just stating what I'm saying, that hey, mass deportations will upend the food industry. The comment says, I would rather starve if it meant getting them out of the nation. Guys, and there was hundreds of comments exactly like this. They literally do not care. Their HATE has been so exacerbated by right-wing paid-off pundits that they don't care what happens to them nor their family as long as we are all saved from those migrants. This is internal warfare. This is psychological warfare, and I don't even know, like, no one's talking about it, so it's very frustrating. I will talk about it. My name is Mercedes Chandler. You can give me a follow, and I'll be reporting on these stories because it is really weird to see the other half of the nation right now being so brainwashed that they would sink their own ship. That is insane. Thank you.
When we talk about mass deportations, we're not just talking about numbers. We're talking about people with livelihoods and that have an impact on our economy and our community. Out of the millions of undocumented immigrants in this country, 8.3 million are in the workforce in essential industries. In a scenario where only 1.3 million workers were deported, this would still have huge significant repercussions on the economy. As a result, the labor supply would go down by 1%, and what would happen is the GDP would drop by 1% and inflation would go up by 0.5%. Now imagine the impact of deporting every undocumented worker. What would that look like for the US economy? Doing that would reduce the labor supply by over 5%, cutting our GDP by 7.5%, and inflation would skyrocket by over 3.5%. That would be a shock to our economy, and that would affect everyone, not just those deported. Deporting immigrants isn't just immigration policy, it's about our economic future.
We have another update about Donald Trump's mass deportations, and this time it's from Fox News.
Well, guys, I've been looking into this policy of mass deportations by Donald Trump's administration, and as you can see, the guy who was in charge of borders is the same guy that he's elected to be in charge of borders. And you know, it's funny that I saw like some Hispanic people who actually voted red saying that he's only gonna focus on the illegal immigrants and criminals. Around back in 2018, there is a woman who was deported back to her country and separated from her family, her children, and her husband, who is an ex-military in the United States of America, and she was deported back. She was granted her status back to the United States, which was not permanent when Biden actually got in power, and she got to be able to be with her family again after 3 years when she was in her country. So you're not on the safe side when you're saying it's only the illegal immigrants and it's only the criminals that are going to be deported if this is gonna happen come 2025. This means even your family members, even you that you're an illegal immigrant that is in the United States of America, or even you that's not documented, or you that is overstaying your visitor's visa in the United States of America, you are at risk of being deported back to your country, which it actually was being deported rather than just going back to your country yourself. You know, you'll not be risking the risk of getting banned when your passport has a ban, and you know, this also risks you from entering even other countries like parts of Europe and other parts of the world. And also, like, some things, if you have property in the States, if you have a car, if you have a house, if you have money in the bank, when they come to get you, you'll not have time to sell all your belongings and at least go back to your home with something. That is, if this is gonna happen. He said and promised this is gonna happen. His first day in office, he's gonna deal with mass deportation. And it seems like they're not joking. A state like Texas, they've already offered them a land where they will build places where they'll deal with all those processes to, you know, deport people, where some people will be locked there until they're deported. I mean, this sounds crazy, and I feel so sorry for people, and actually Hispanic people, that 60% of Hispanic people, actually Hispanic men, voted red. Like, people actually like voted against their own self-interest, which is quite sad. I don't know, is it because they don't some people didn't understand some of these policies? Because I don't understand how you're gonna vote against your self-interest. Like, you voted against Obamacare because you thought Obamacare was just for the poor people, and you didn't know it was the same as Affordable Care Act. Now people voted against mass deportation because here you thought that it's only the illegal immigrants and the undocumented immigrants and the criminals that are going to be deported back to their countries. Well, this woman in 2018, she was married to a US citizen who is actually an ex-military who served the country, and they really begged them not to deport her, but she still got deported. So what makes you think, or what makes you feel like you are on the right side? What makes you feel like I'll not get deported? I mean, I'm paying taxes in this country. Everyone is paying taxes where they are. When you buy something from the shop, you're paying taxes. So I don't know what you guys think. And for people who are like so happy and cheering up the mass deportation in the United States of America, these are the American citizens. Now this part, there's gonna be issues in the country, like economic issues. You know, there's gonna be economic consequences like loss of labor. Deportation can lead to labor shortages in industries like agriculture. We all know most American citizens cannot work in some of these fields. Construction and hospitality. Some people from the United States of America, they're not gonna work in this field, and it's because also some companies or some parts in this field, they don't want to pay them a decent pay, so people will not choose to go and work in those industries because they are going to ask for higher pay, and the company don't want to pay them that because, you know, they just want to make the bag for themselves and keep you working, you know, because what schools taught us or what we are taught in school is to keep working and work, and this is what some of these companies do to us. So this is where actually most undocumented immigrants do go there to work, and that's why you have like vegetable, fruits. That's why when you go to some restaurant, you have food to eat, you have people to serve you. But what will happen when these people get deported? There's going to be a decline in local economies. Reduced consumer spending and workforce participation can hurt local businesses and decrease tax revenue. You know, these are some of the things that people didn't really look so much into it when you're there happy and celebrating about mass deportation. Yes, people that are going to be deported back in their countries, they have reasons as to why they came to this country. Maybe things were not working well in their countries. But what are the effects that how will you be affected when this actually happens, when it comes to you, when it comes to your livelihood, you know? Another one is there's gonna be impact on American-born children. That is like mixed families. Imagine you're an American citizen, like this guy whose wife got deported back in 2018. He actually voted for Trump, and he still went on ahead and deported his wife. So imagine you are a mixed family. You are a man who is an American citizen who've married an immigrant. Imagine your mom being separated, the mother of your kids being separated from her kids. And maybe imagine when you have young kids, oh, it's gonna be a tough time. Like, it's gonna be crazy. Then there's also gonna be addiction disruptions on these kids. These children often face disruption in their addiction due to relocation, if they're gonna have to relocate, financial hardship in the countries that they'll have to be taken to, or emotional trauma. So imagine you have a child with a mother of your kids who is an immigrant, and she has to relocate, she has to be deported. So that means it's like a relocation, going to a whole new other country that these children don't know a thing about. So you can imagine the effect that it will have on that child. Your child not growing around you. And what does this even mean for your family? What if they are not able to come back to the United States of America? That means it's gonna be the end of your family. I don't know what you guys think. Let me know what your thoughts are on the comment section. And if you never voted red, let me know why. Like, were you okay with illegal immigrants coming to the United States of America? Or what were your reasons as to why you were voting blue? In as much as people are complaining a lot of illegal immigrants and people crossing the borders with no legal documents and messing your economy. Let me know what your thoughts are on the comment section. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't. Thank you so much for watching up to this part, and until the next episode, bye.